So hi everyone, it's Julia. I'm so happy to be back making videos. Like I've said on my community posts, if you've been checking them out, life, busyness, but I'm back and I'm gonna give you a breakdown of Oprah Winfrey, why she is so loved yet so hated. It's like, I've just been noticing this like polarizing view of Oprah Winfrey. It's like you have people that like her, and then you have people that can't stand her, then you have people who love her, and it's like very mixed. So I kind of wanted to dive into why, and I just wanted to put in a couple of disclaimers. So my first disclaimer is that I really want to try to give as balanced of an opinion as possible. And yes, opinion, okay? I want to give as balanced of an opinion as possible. So presenting the facts and then having an opinion, and then y'all kind of make your own conclusions as well in the comments. So I don't claim to be like a professional journalist. So again, these are going to be opinions. So yeah, my personal bias may come in here and there depending on what we're talking about, the situation. But I do want to acknowledge that Oprah has done a lot of good for the community, for people. And I also want to acknowledge her more shady and not so good acts, because there are a ton there. I just want to present my opinions as on the good and the bad. And like I said, you're free to come up with your own conclusions in the comments. I also want to acknowledge that Oprah's career was in like the 90s, the late 80s, 90s, 2000s. And so some of the things that she is going to say are going to come off really bad to us in this day and age, because times weren't as sensitive back then. People were a lot more open and a lot more kind of just cutthroat. So she's going to say things that obviously are going to, ruffle feathers. I think it's just important to keep that in mind and understand that. And just because the standards were different back then, that doesn't make what she's saying right. Because I just feel like there's going to be some old heads in the comments like, well, back in the 90s, we wanted to know everything about every celebrity. And so that's why we wanted to ask these questions. And it's like, well, I get that. But I get that y'all didn't have social media, but that doesn't make these things right. So again, while I find myself sometimes lamenting the past and wishing that I could be in a time where people weren't so sensitive, because the sensitivity gets on my nerves, I also can acknowledge when things are just wrong, despite the time period. So again, this is going to kick off a new series on my channel about talk show hosts. So I want to talk about Dr. Phil, Tyra Banks, Maury, and a whole other host of people, Wendy Williams as well. So yeah, and anyone else that y'all want me to talk about. And also, again, thank you guys so much for 50,000 subscribers. This is literally insane that I'm at 50K and it's not even the end of 2021. Like, thank you all so much. And yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Also, I hope my jacket's not bothering y'all. I thought it looked good on camera, but it's making a lot of noise. So I pray that that's not driving y'all crazy. All right, I changed my jacket. When I do breakdowns, I always like to do a little overview of the person that I'm talking about. So before Oprah Winfrey was dubbed the Queen of all media, before she ran the highest rated TV program in history, and before she became the richest African-American of the 20th century, Oprah Winfrey was born Orpah Gail Winfrey on January 29, 1954. So yes, if you didn't know, Oprah was born Orpah. And I find this kind of funny because Orpah is actually a biblical character. And so if you read the Bible, you know about the story of Ruth, Naomi, and Orpah. And basically, Orpah had little to no influence and was hardly mentioned. And in fact, Orpah technically she wasn't bad, but she didn't do the right thing. She abandoned her mother-in-law Naomi after her husband, who was also Naomi's son, died, and to go back to the town of Moab, while Ruth stayed with her mother-in-law and then became best friends with Naomi. Then she married Boaz, and that whole story. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting that Oprah's mother named her after such an insignificant character in the Bible. But I also understand that there are people who just want to name their kids after any character in the Bible. It's just kind of a thing in some families. So yeah. So Oprah had a pretty rough upbringing. She was raised by her grandmother until the age of 6, and then she was sent to go live with her single mom. And she said that she wasn't even allowed to sleep inside the house because her mother did not like or approve of her dark skin.
I remember the first night entering into that house and being told that I wouldn't be able to sleep with my mother and I wouldn't be able to sleep inside the house. It was because of the color of my skin. I don't know how I knew that, but I did.
So her mother was also living with a very light-skinned Black woman at the time, and Oprah knew that this woman didn't like her from the beginning. And so I really think it was powerful that Oprah decided to share her story on colorism, because I grew up feeling inferior because of my darker skin. I grew up going through colorism and things like that, not to like a crazy degree, but in my own, just the way I perceived myself. It wasn't until maybe high school until I like finally got over it and I learned to accept my skin tone to its fullest, you know. Yeah, that's so yeah. So Oprah was also as a child in her teens, and she got pregnant at 14 years old. However, her son was born prematurely and died shortly after, and Oprah's child was named Canaan, and it meant new land and new life. And so this story was actually broken by Oprah's half-sister, Patricia Lloyd, and her and Oprah fell out because of this, because Patricia leaked the story to the media back in 1990. Oprah was heartbroken by this, but then she later cites that she felt empowered and free and felt open to get rid of the shame. And so, yeah, basically Oprah felt very insecure about letting people know that she had suffered a miscarriage. She was afraid that this was going to make her career. You know, people are going to look at her career differently. People are going to think she was fast and have all these sorts of stereotypes and all these sorts of opinions on her. But she said that when it was finally released, she felt so empowered and free. And I really think that this helped probably a lot of women back at that time who were dealing with miscarriages, dealing with sexual. I'm sure she really helped and is still helping people identify with her by sharing that story, even though it didn't come out the way she wanted, and she had every right to have it come out when she felt ready to. But yeah, so that's also really empowering. So then after that, Oprah was sent to live with her father, Vernon Winfrey, and stepmother, Zelma Winfrey, and she landed a radio job while she was still in high school. And so Oprah's father was a barber when Oprah first began her talk show in 1985, and he was also a church deacon at Faith United Missionary Baptist Church, where Oprah went to church growing up, and she was very involved in the congregation. That was basically her life. Her dad was a very strict presence in her life, and the church was also a big presence in her life as well. Vernon was also an elected city councilman, and also made sure to tune in every morning to Oprah's show from 9 to 10 back when it was first airing in 1986. Oprah had this to say about her upbringing in 1986. "If I hadn't been sent to my father when I was 14, I would have gone in another direction. I could have made a good criminal." Vernon was a strict parent, not allowing Oprah to wear too much makeup or clothes that showed her bare midriff, and he was also hard on her when it came to education. And I think because of Oprah's very strict upbringing, and because also her stepmother took her to the library every 2 weeks, I think this really kind of fostered that gift of being able to speak, and the gift of just speech and words and diction. I think being kind of put in that sort of, having that upbringing really helped her. It's interesting. That's how it was with me growing up. My dad always took me to the library. He made me do book reports. When my mom took me to the library, she let me take whatever I want. But my dad was like, "You're going to read To Kill a Mockingbird. You're going to read this. You're going to read that." And yeah, I think that kind of actually fostered my love for writing, to be honest. It's poppin', it's editor me. I wanted to add something that I actually just found during this editing process, is that Oprah and her father are not that close anymore. Radar Our Line did an interview with Vernon Winfrey back in like 2017, and Vernon literally said that he only talks to Oprah like twice a year, and he's in ailing health, and that his like living conditions aren't as good. And so I don't know why they fell out, but that's what Radar Our Line said. And I was really surprised because, again, her father seemed to be very supportive. Her father was really an anchor, and Oprah even said herself, "If it wasn't for my dad, I would have became like a criminal." So I found that very, very surprising. So yeah, I wanted to add that. Here's the tabloid. It's very gossipy, so I don't know. They made Oprah sound like a terrible trash person. It really makes Oprah look bad. So I don't know what the story is, but if you want to read it, here it is. So in 1973, at age 19, Oprah became a newscaster for Nashville's WVOL radio. In 1976, she became a co-anchor for WJZ-TV, and fun fact, I grew up in Baltimore, so I watched WJZ like every single day after school. So when I found this out, I was like, dang, she was right in my backyard, literally. However, she said this experience was pretty terrible, and however, she did pay a visit to WJZ in 2011, and she spoke pretty fondly of her experience. So maybe back then, since she was young, she was like, oh my gosh, this was trash, blah, 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 blah. But maybe looking back as an adult, she kind of has a lot of fondness towards it. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of like past jobs and past things I've done that I didn't like. I see what I learned from it and what I gained from it. So maybe that's how Oprah felt as well. Oprah then became co-host of WJZ's People Are Talking in 1977, which was her first talk show job.
Every today. This is it.
You go nuts. It's
Welcome
great.
to People Are Talking. I'm Richard Scher.
And I'm Oprah Winfrey.
So nice. Oprah was not feeling well last show, and it's nice to have you back.
A little under the weather.
Yes. Nice to have you with us today.
It's good to be here.
And then she moved to Chicago for WLS's TV's AM Chicago. So AM Chicago went from the lowest rated show, it went from being the lowest rated talk show in Chicago to the highest rated talk show in Chicago. And then Oprah was then presented with a syndication deal by movie critic Roger Ebert for her own talk show, which was eventually named The Oprah Winfrey Show. So that was the impetus of The Oprah Winfrey Show, was her basically getting Chicago's talk show off the ground, and she was offered that syndication deal through that. At this time, Oprah began to struggle with her weight, and by the time she moved to Chicago, she cited that eating was her way to cope with her fear of failure, and so I'll get more into this when discussing The Oprah Winfrey Show. So I realized I actually never talked about her dieting issues and stuff later in the video, but basically what I'm going to say is that Oprah went through a lot when it came to dieting, her perception of food, her perception of weight, and her self-image. And she actually had a show where she brought a wagon of like 67 pounds of fat because she literally starved herself over the course of a few months to lose weight. And she ended up saying that that's one of the biggest regrets of her career, or of the show, was doing that. So that's kind of a very concise look at that. So she's been very up and down with it over the years. So now we're going to discuss The Oprah Winfrey Show. So by 1985, Oprah had landed an acting role in the cult classic The Color Purple, which only furthered her status as a budding talk show host. So when she started getting movie roles, when she started getting little gigs here and there, that only pushed her further up there wasn't really an algorithm back then, but pushed her up the algorithm basically, and kind of helped her as a talk show host. The Oprah Winfrey Show debuted on September 8th, 1986, and to this day, The Oprah Winfrey Show remains the highest rated talk show in American television history, and was also one of the longest running talk shows in history.
I'm Oprah Winfrey, and welcome to the very first National Oprah Winfrey Show!
So Oprah really kind of made her mark and solidified herself just with the Oprah Winfrey Show and how much she did with that. Her show is extremely impactful on pop culture, from interviews to discussing self-help and improvement. And according to a Washington Post article written in December 1986, Oprah succeeded without becoming a white Black person. So many Black Americans find that to be debatable by today's standards, but I'm gonna get into that at the end of the video, where we kind of discuss Oprah's, how people view Oprah's Blackness and how she is as a Black woman and in culture and stuff like that. But back then, Oprah really challenged stereotypes made about Black Americans, and kind of like how the Cosby Show did for the average Black family back in the day. So Oprah, while a lot of people feel like Oprah pandered too much to white audiences, they also feel like she really made a way in terms of how Black women are portrayed on TV, which I can honestly agree with. So now I want to get into Oprah's craziest interviews on the Oprah Winfrey Show. As we know, Oprah Winfrey Show, that show is like a big chunk of her legacy. And so there were tons of crazy bombshell interviews on there. So the ones that I wanted to get into were like Michael Jackson and Dave Chappelle in particular. And yeah, so many people in general don't like Oprah's interviewing skills because she tends to cut people off, pester for information, and it can even put words into people's mouths. In one of my most popular videos about the Olsen twins, basically I put a clip where Oprah basically asked them about their size. She was asking them about their size. She cuts people off, and she even in Mary-Kate and Ashley's interview, she really didn't let them speak like that, and she kind of just insinuated a lot of things. Like, I feel like she was insinuating that Mary-Kate and Ashley were brats, when I think they were trying to come off as like regular people, and she made them look as though they were materialistic, even though they were just trying to say, we're just regular 17-year-olds, we just have a platform, that's it. So the first interview I want to discuss is with Dave Chappelle. So many people feel that in this interview, Dave was trying to subliminally expose the industry for how they like to control, manipulate, gaslight you, and much worse. If you know, you know. People also feel like he was low-key letting Oprah know that she's one of these big kahunas in the industry. Like, she's one of these people that likes to manipulate people and control them and everything like that. What I will say about that is I definitely sensed a ton of awkward energy in this interview between Dave and Oprah. Oprah's facial expressions and body language seemed really uncomfortable, and she even seemed frustrated and angry with Dave at some points.
You mentioned a moment ago that you felt that there were some things that weren't socially responsible. Like what?
like there's this one sketch we did that was about this pixie that would appear whenever racist things happens. Whenever someone make you feel like they calling you that N-word. But so then when I'm on the set and we're finally taping the sketch, somebody on the set that was white laughed in such a way. I know the difference of people laughing with me and people laughing at me. And it was the first time I'd ever gotten a laugh that I was uncomfortable with. Certainly.
Yeah.
I don't want black people to be disappointed in me for putting that out there.
No, you didn't want to be disappointed in yourself.
You know what, Oprah? You're right.
Yeah. I still have.
So I'm sorry I couldn't play the clips all the way through. I just did not want to get copyrighted by the OWN network. I've been copyrighted by them before, but I wanted you guys to check out her face that she made when she was like, you didn't want to be disappointed in yourself. Because Dave's talking about how he did not want to have a sketch that was making fun of his own people. He didn't want black people to be disappointed in him. He didn't want black people to feel let down by him. And Oprah's like, you didn't want to be disappointed in yourself. It's just the way her face was, that was extremely hostile. So in these next clips of Dave, I just want you guys to kind of notice how Oprah's constantly trying to frame a narrative that he's crazy, and he's kind of cleverly maneuvering her questioning, her line of questioning, and it really just seems like two people are having a conversation about the depths of the industry, but kind of more under the table. You know, the average person may not understand, but if you understand the way these record labels control people, the way these executives control people, the way you're literally a slave to the industry, that's the conversation they're having. And Dave didn't want to become one of those people, I'm assuming. That's how I took it, and that's how many other people took it in the comments of that video as well.
I was going. The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication. Yeah. Like I'm sitting around, So this was troublesome.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid,
But you were stressed out. That's why.
There's no question.
Yeah.
But.
Did your wife and children know where you're going?
No.
No. Nobody knew.
No. I bounced.
Now, that sounds a little crazy.
It's not crazy because the situation kind of warranted it.
Okay.
Because certain people around me were putting my sanity in question.
So did you go to a psychiatric hospital?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
Who? Huh? Oh, yeah, that's right. I was so...
I'm only asking because I need to ask. Okay.
I gotta get people thinking, all right, who goes from America to Africa for medical attention?
So for anyone that's too young, I didn't really explain the context of everything. So basically, Dave Chappelle, comedian, we all know him, he had a really successful show in the early 2000s called The Chappelle Show, and basically he was offered a $50 million contract after his second season ended, and I guess the terms in the contract were just crazy, and he just didn't want to sign on with it, so he left and escaped to South Africa, and a bunch of people were calling him crazy for turning it down, for going all the way to Africa, so that's kind of the premise. Again, if you want to know more, you have to watch the whole interview. It's on Oprah's channel. Obviously, I couldn't put it in here because we don't need copyright or anything like that. But yeah, it's on Oprah's channel if you want to watch more of the interview and understand more of what's going on. So yeah, next person we're going to talk about is Michael Jackson. So the next interview I want to discuss is with Michael Jackson. And so I feel like an entire show, literally could be made on Michael Jackson and Oprah's relationship in the media. There's a lot of contention between MJ superfans and Oprah Winfrey. A lot of y'all MJ superfans don't like Oprah. Oprah's interview with Michael Jackson was Oprah's most watched interview, and it's actually the most watched TV interview of all time, clocking in at 62.3 million viewers at the time, and it was a live interview. And it was done at Michael Jackson's home in Neverland. I think what irritated me the most about this interview is that Oprah seemed to lack self-awareness. So there was one point where Michael said in the interview, if I was interviewing Michelangelo, I'd want to know about the anatomy of his craftsmanship, not who he went out with last night or whatever. And it's ironic because about 45 minutes into the interview, she said that she's been spending so much time trying to dispel rumors that she hadn't been able to talk much about his artistry. And so I think you could view that both ways. Some people view it as like Oprah was asking these questions because this is what people wanted to know, but other people viewed it as her prying into his life and being disrespectful and not listening to him. And so there's a whole lot of like back and forth there. I kind of think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. I think she acknowledged that a lot of the rumors and stuff were stupid, but then she also was like, ooh, but I need to get this story, which at the same time is kind of her job as a journalist to get a story. And it was a big story because it was like the first interview that Michael had done in like a decade. And so I don't know, I kind of see it both ways.
Even out my skin. But you know what's funny? Why is that so important? You know, that's not important to me. I'm a great fan of art. I love Michelangelo. If I had a chance to talk to him or read about him, I would want to know about what inspired him to become who he is, the anatomy of his craftsmanship, not about who he went out with last night or why he decided to sit out in the sun so long. What's wrong with, I mean, that's what's important to me.
However, again, yeah, Oprah did ask some pretty crazy questions. The one question I really didn't like her asking was she asked if Michael was a virgin, which I don't think is anyone's business, regardless of who it is. It doesn't matter who it is. It's no one's business if someone is a virgin or not.
Are you a virgin? How could you ask me that question?
I just want to know. I want to know.
I'm a gentleman.
You're a gentleman.
I'm a gentleman.
Like I said in the beginning, I feel like some people are going to go back and say, well, that was just what we wanted to know back then. And Michael Jackson was this and this and that. And we were so curious. And no, that's not okay. Like, I just don't think it's appropriate to ask a 35-year-old about their sex life. Again, she laughed after it, so maybe she realized it was inappropriate. But I'm like, still, you really had to go there, Oprah? Really had to go there? I also thought it was crazy that Michael said he's proud to be a Black American, and then she immediately follows up with, is your skin lighter because you don't like being Black?
Why would I want a white child to play me? I'm a Black American. I'm proud to be a Black American. I am proud of my race. I am proud of who I am. I have a lot of pride in who I am and dignity.
Controversy as to what you have done or are doing. Are you bleaching your skin? And is your skin lighter because you don't like being Black?
And I get that she had to push, but like I was getting annoyed because, and I'm not even like a Michael Jackson super fan like that. I like the guy. I really, especially when I was younger, I was a huge fan. But I just kind of didn't like how he was being very honest. He's like, yo, why would I want a white child to play me? Why I love who I am. I'm proud of who I am. And then she literally asked, is your skin lighter because you don't like being Black? It's like, he just said no, like in 5 different ways. So yeah. And another thing is that when Michael would plead with people to not believe the lies, Oprah would just move on to the next question, which really did upset a lot of Michael Jackson fans, which is where I say, like, I want to give Oprah the benefit of the doubt in the sense that I think she understood that a lot of the questions are ridiculous, but I also get pretty annoyed with her because it's like, he literally was pleading with people and basically saying a dissertation, like, don't believe this, and this is why. Don't believe this, and this is why. And then Oprah would just move on. But then you could argue, oh, well, they only had an hour. There's just so many ways you could argue it, but I just wish she gave him more time to speak and defend himself. So another point of contention with Oprah and Michael Jackson fans was Oprah's interview with Wade Robson and James Safechuck of the Leaving Neverland documentary that came out, I think, 2 to 3 years ago. Here's all I'm gonna say about that. Thousands upon thousands of Michael Jackson fans were totally pissed when Oprah decided to do an interview with these guys. And basically what I'm gonna say about this documentary, and some people are gonna get mad in their feelings, I don't care, this is what I believe. There were tons of inconsistencies throughout that documentary. And I'm not gonna talk about them a lot of them in this video because you can find articles, you can find videos all over YouTube pointing out these inconsistencies. There's a lot of weird shadiness around Wade Robson. What I will say about Wade Robson is what really got me about him is the fact that the prosecution back in Michael Jackson's 2005 trial, they literally called Wade an ironclad witness. They were so confident in this man. And it's like, why would you literally risk, like if you had any feeling that this guy could turn and fold to the other side, you wouldn't make them an ironclad witness. And so that was one thing. And then also just the fact that it seems like he was just mad at Michael. You know, he wasn't getting a lot of work in the industry. So there's a lot of shadiness and stuff with that documentary, a lot of inconsistencies, but I'm not going to go on a whole tangent. That's not my job. Watch a video that talks about that. But what I will say is I believe that Michael was stupid for putting himself in these situations. It's like you have a lot of families who want to extort you. You know, it was proven that Evan Chandler, who was Jordan Chandler's father, was just trying to extort him. They literally had audio of him saying that this is an entire lie. You can literally listen to that audio on YouTube. So that was really annoying, because it's like you got in trouble for this before, for inserting yourself where you don't belong, having kids sleep with you in your bed, like, or in your room. Like, don't, like, no, they're not your kids, okay? They're not your kids, fam. Like, I don't know, put them in another house. I don't know. Like, you don't need to have kids sleeping over with you. And I don't believe he did anything nefarious, but was it stupid? Yes, because he put himself in these situations for people to take advantage of him, for people to lie on him. And I just think it was just really irresponsible for a grown man. He was in his 30s to early, 30s, especially when this was in the 90s. He was in his 30s. Like, he should have known better, you know? It just didn't make any sense. That's all I gotta say. Again, many people feel like Oprah stabbed Michael in the back. However, what I will say is that Oprah did know the game. So again, maybe more Michael Jackson fans might get mad at me for saying that, but she knew the game. I don't think her and Michael were like tight besties like that. And you think to yourself, like, ethically, you know, she shouldn't be doing things like this. And I agree to a degree that, you know, she shouldn't be out here, you know, pushing all these narratives, but she's an interviewer and she knows to jump on juicy stories. And I also want to charge people to think this way. Oprah couldn't have gotten to where she got to, or where she is now, had she not been cutthroat. She knew the game. And there's an article that talks about this, so I'll get more into that later in the video. Oprah has also been called out for her close association to Harvey Weinstein. So Oprah was friends with Harvey Weinstein for several years until he was outed for his towards many young, inspiring actresses. So Seal actually called out Oprah Winfrey back in 2018, citing that Oprah was part of the problem. Seal quickly backtracked though, because, you know, Oprah's Oprah. You can't speak out you know, he got all that backlash because a lot of people were saying, oh, well, you were friends with Kevin Spacey and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, he was really the only person that called her out for her association to him. Basically, I don't want to go too deep, you know, with this, and I don't have concrete evidence, but Oprah was on the flight list, the Jeffrey Epstein flight list. And all I'm going to say about that is that we don't have any concrete proof of Oprah doing anything. While is it shady? Absolutely. Is it weird? Absolutely. A lot of these like higher ups, they move and shake together, okay? They are literally a whole, like they're literally, it's like they're all like a little brotherhood, like this 1%, these Hollywood people. But all I'm gonna say is we don't have concrete evidence, so I'm not gonna say anything here or there, but all I'm gonna say is it's shady, it's weird. And when she was questioned about it, she kind of gave like a really roundabout answer.
I happened to be on set with several actresses the other day, and we were filming some things, and they hadn't slept over a period of 2 or 3 days, and I was like, what is that? I said, oh, you guys are suffering from PTSD.
And when you start talking about it out loud too,
everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And so I think this is a watershed moment. And if we make this just about Harvey Weinstein, then we will have lost this moment. I think this is
So yeah, although I will also say y'all need to pay attention to Maxwell's trial. Yeah, pay attention to that. So next, what I want to discuss about Oprah is Oprah and Monique. So if you don't know who Monique is, she's an American comedian and actress best known for her stand-up comedy and her starring role as Nikki Parker on the classic sitcom The Parkers. I mean, it's a classic spin-off of Moesha, you know, classic show. And she was also known for the role that gave her a Golden Globe and an Oscar, which was Mary Lee in the movie Precious. So she played Precious. Mother, you know, we all like, you know, if you watch Precious back in 2009, I've seen Precious like 50 times now. So like, but yeah, that was definitely a movie that was on repeat in my house. Because my mom really liked watching Oprah and anything related to her. So basically around 2015-ish, Monique went off on Lee Daniels, Tyler Perry, and Oprah Winfrey for the way they treated her in the industry after her role in the movie Precious. So Monique alleged that Lee Daniels blackballed her in the industry and that during the Precious Award campaign, Monique didn't play the game. Basically, after that, she was blackballed. Lee Daniels and his team, so Oprah, Tyler Perry, they all felt that they wanted Monique to do free interviews when Precious was first coming out. So they wanted her to do all this press to garner, traction for the movie. And Monique only was paid $50,000. So Monique is a very seasoned comedian, and she's a seasoned actress, and she's put in decades upon decades of work in the industry. And so she took $50,000 as kind of a favor to Oprah, as a favor to Lee Daniels, as a favor to Tyler Perry, because these were her friends in the industry. But really, she was lowballed. She got completely lowballed because she didn't deserve such a low pay in the first place. But basically, once Precious really got big and everything like that, they were asking her to do free interviews, free press. And she's like, you're not gonna not pay me to do press, especially since she's done so many iconic roles and really paved the way for herself back in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah. Well, when the third call came and they said, what is it gonna take to get Monique to France, to the Cannes Film Festival? And my husband said, is there a number associated with it? And they said, oh, we would never pay for anyone to do any promotions for a movie.
So Monique felt that since she won an Oscar for the movie Precious, that she deserved to be getting bigger offers and she deserved to become a bigger name in Hollywood. And so what I have to say about that is the fact that basically, and Lovely T made a video about this a couple years ago, and so she broke it down really well, that when you get an Oscar, you're supposed to get like a huge pay raise. Like that really bumps you up in the industry. When you get like an Oscar, when you get that big of a sign of approval, you are expecting to get millions and millions of dollars, right? But since Monique was a Black woman in this industry, she was really getting lowballed a lot. Her white counterparts were making millions and millions, and she was still getting offers that were like in the 100,000s and the thousands. And while that seems like a lot to people like you and me, that's really not a lot for someone who's put in decades upon decades of work. And so basically, Monique was really mad at Oprah because she feels that Oprah should have came to her defense, because they were basically, the industry was kind of looking at Monique like this angry Black woman and like she's difficult to work with and blah, blah, blah. And she really didn't come to Monique's defense. That's kind of like where that shadiness and contention goes to. And basically, Oprah basically didn't feel the need to address anything in regards to Monique or come to her defense. And Monique felt like she did Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels a favor, and they didn't reciprocate that energy. So that's kind of another like kind of shady part of Oprah. But at the same time, I feel like you can argue that it's business, but then ethically, it's not really right, but it's also business. So yeah. So the last thing I really wanted to talk about in this breakdown was just Oprah, or the public's perception of that. So like I said before, a lot of people feel like Oprah pandered to white audiences, and they still believe to this day that she does. And so I want to take it back to 1986 when her talk show was first taking off. When her show became nationally syndicated, it was at the expense of another Black woman named Carol Randolph in the Washington area. And so she was a talk show host in that area, and she had a very strong local following. And her show got cut to half an hour in September 1985, then cut altogether in favor of Oprah's show. So many protested, but Oprah felt that it was strictly business. She was like, this is business, you need to be competitive. Again, heard that she doesn't treat white people the same as Black people. Like, she treats white people with more of respect than Black people and things like that. And then she's tougher on Black celebs than she is whites. And according to this quote on the Washington Post, they attributed Oprah to someone who genuinely likes people, but she is smart. She's also smart and knows who butters her bread. And so that's literally a quote from that article, that she knows who butters her bread. And I want to basically say that, again, Oprah was coming up at a time where social media wasn't a thing. There wasn't a lot of Black women in this space. And so she had to be cutthroat. Am I saying it's right? No. Am I saying I agree with her? No. But she had to kind of go on these certain tactics in order to make it to the top. She was very aware of that from a young age. So again, like, Oprah knows who butters her bread. She knew the audience. And so while I feel like it definitely makes me a little bit it's a little off-putting to know that she kind of had to pander to a degree. I feel like to get to a certain level, that's essentially what you have to do. You know, you have to appeal to all kinds of audiences. And again, she was coming up in a time where she couldn't just turn on her camera and upload her video to YouTube and then go viral and make billions and billions of dollars. She had to put in work at a time where it wasn't as convenient to come up. So that's kind of how I feel on that. And also, this is something I really didn't like. Something she was quoted as saying in 2007 is that she feels that African students actually appreciate what they have, unlike Americans. And so she said she became very frustrated visiting inner city schools, that she just stopped going. She said if you ask kids what they want or need, they will say an iPod or sneakers, where in South Africa, they ask for uniforms to go to school. But again, that's like, I don't feel like you need to blame the kids fully for that. And I feel like she's making a very blanketed statement. You know, I feel like not all kids in the inner cities, all they care about is just getting shoes and this and that. You have your gems out there, the people who really do care and really do want to make a better life for themselves. And so I feel like she's putting a stark generalization. And there are a lot of African kids, when you go, they want an iPad, they want an Apple Watch. You know, I have cousins in Ghana, you know, like I'm Ghanaian, and they be wanting iPad. They like, you bring your Apple Watch, they're like, hey, you buy me an Apple Watch. They get so excited when you bring them gifts. It's like, I just think that's a kid thing, to want toys, to want stuff. So I get where she's coming from with it, but I think it's a very generalized, blanketed statement to make, and I think it's very problematic. You know, like she did not phrase that well at all. And so a lot of people are like, you're gonna establish a school in Africa when you could do it in your home country. But she did say, oh well, I've donated to tons of schools and I've done all this stuff. So all I'm gonna say is that the way she phrased that was not the best. And so yeah, that's basically kind of like my breakdown of why people love and hate Oprah Winfrey. You know, I guess I didn't really speak too much on the loving part. I think, again, people really love her because she's very philanthropic. People love her because she really did pave a way. She is known as the queen of media. She's inspiring. But I do think, again, that a lot of what Oprah has done in her career, I think has really been driven by money, you know, has really been driven by materialistic things, by really trying to do her best to get the best story, you know. And it's a shame that that's how media is, but that's how it is, you know. So it's like, while it's not right, it's kind of the name of the game. It's like, if you get into that space, you kind of have to say and do things that you may not normally do or regularly want to do in order to get to a certain level. So again, what I say to that is that a lot of these people end up doing things that they normally wouldn't do in order to get to a level of fame. I'm not saying that Oprah did anything nefarious, but I'm just going to say the association she's had has been shady, but a lot of Hollywood is shady. I think Oprah, again, is very influential and has done a lot for especially the Black community and Black women. But I also do feel like, again, she's the type that's going to do whatever she got to do to make a bag, to get a bag. That's who she is. And she even knew that she said this, like I said, in 1986. She's smart and she knows who butters her bread. So yeah, that's basically my breakdown of Oprah Winfrey. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm so sorry that it took me thousands of years to get this up, but life, school, life. So again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.